All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's Portals community call. Great to have everyone with us. I hope everyone's doing well out there. A fun topic this month, the many interfaces of Power Apps Portals. Our host and presenter is Nicholas Hayduk. It's great to have him back as always for running and presenting on these events. If you have any questions, you can use the questions block in the webcast interface at any time. I know Nick will be making time to take your questions and suggestions and ideas and observations, anything you really want. And we are recording today's event, so we will be sharing that after the event ends today. So Nick, without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to you.
Sounds good. All right. Let's jump into this. So yeah, quick introduction. If you haven't been here before, I am Nicholas Hayduk, President and Software Engineer with Engineered Code Consulting Inc., Microsoft MVP that has been working with Power Apps Portals for many years now, since about 2009 or 2010. If you aren't already, linked with me or connected with me on LinkedIn, feel free to do that. You can also follow me on Twitter, check out my blog or our YouTube channel. I'm a little bit more active on YouTube these days than my blog, as well as the podcast that I do with Nick Dolman called Refresh the Cache. So lots of different ways that you can get in touch with me. So feel free to connect with me on those social media channels. But let's just get past that. As always, I'd like to acknowledge and show my appreciation for Jason and the entire team at MS Dynamics World for hosting our call every month. They've been a great partner in this endeavor, so really just happy to continue to work with him and the team. So our agenda. So we'll talk about some news. It's been actually over the last couple months, a lot has been going on with portals. So we've got more news to share over the last month or so. We'll then cover today's topic, which is the many interfaces of Power Apps Portals. Now, I probably should have qualified that a little bit more. What we're talking about is the many administrative interfaces. So we're not talking about the front end necessarily. We're talking about all the different ways you can manage and build your Power Apps portals. So hopefully that's what you're interested in. If you're looking at the front side, we're not going to cover those topics. We're going to talk about things like the Portal Studio or the model-driven app, or we'll talk about the new VS Code extension that's out, all these different ways that you can manage your Power Apps portals. And I'll kind of show, there's many different ways to do, kind of the same thing. So I'll kind of tell you, what I like to do and what different interfaces. I think pretty much all the different interfaces now, there's something that I like about them. So I'll use them for different aspects depending on what I'm doing. So I'll kind of share some of my tips and tricks for that as well. So in terms of portals news, what's kind of happened in the last month or so since we last got together. So licensing changes. Everyone loves portals licensing. There was really no room for improvement here, but they decided to do so anyway. Wink, wink. So there's some new tiers. So one of the kind of challenges we always had was when someone would say, well, I'm going to have 1 million users a month, and they were using the $2 a login price, people would calculate some pretty astronomical monthly costs for portals, and it just wasn't realistic. And in the real world, that Microsoft never charged that much for anything anyways, but it would always just require you to get in touch with Microsoft, work out a deal with them. So what they've done is they've added a couple more tiers. 25,000 logins is now available at 32 cents a login, and we've got 100,000 at 12 cents a login. Whereas before, the tiers where you started off at $2 a login, you go down to $1, and then you could go down to about 70 cents a login. And that was, I think, at 5,000 logins. So if you get up to that 25,000 logins, you're now getting them, significantly cheaper, and then, all the way down to 12 cents a logins if you're doing 100,000 a month. So this is really nice. It avoids the kind of the weird conversations where you have to tell people, well, yeah, that's what the pricing says, but at your volumes, we know we can get you a better deal than that. But then they say, well, what is that deal? And you're like, well, who knows what that deal is? It just makes it a lot easier. So it's just like, here's the deal. just makes those conversations a lot easier. So another tweak that they made to the licensing guide is the fact that faculty and students of educational institutions can be licensed using logins. And that's a great change because often at those types of institutions, faculty and students may not be daily or very frequent users of whatever's being built. So if you can think about, maybe you're building a portal that allows students to register for courses. Well, maybe they do that 3 times a year. So you might have a busy month, but you don't necessarily want to have to license those people in perpetuity just because they're using it for, once every few months. So what this means is, because before, if you had faculties are employees of the organization, so they would have been required to be licensed under the Power Apps model. So, and then students is a little bit of a gray area as well. So now they're just kind of making it clear that faculty and students can be licensed using logins, they kind of removed that gray area. And then they also, I guess they announced some discounts for nonprofits. I don't know, to be honest, so much the details on that one, because I know that we deal with a lot of nonprofits, and there were already kind of traditional discounts for nonprofits for portals. So I'm just wondering if maybe there are deeper discounts available, but to be honest, I don't know the details of that. But that was essentially Dilip Singh, the program or product manager for portals, kind of had a string of tweets. So he mentioned that in there, so I thought I'd raise that as well. So it's always great when Microsoft says they're going to give us, licensing announcements that are either something cheaper or you get more for what you're paying, and all those sorts of things. So it's nice to share some good news on the portals licensing side of things. Do I think that this solves all of our portals licensing challenges? No, I do not, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. Otherwise, we've got a new chatbot component in Portal Studio. So if you're using Power Virtual Agent, you can make it, you can add it to your portal using a component in Portal Studio. I might be able to show that in the when we talk about Portal Studio here in a little bit. As well as, and I believe I saw his name here earlier in the attendees. Let me just see if he's still here. Yeah. So we got a couple new, essentially the two, what I consider to be like the two portals forums rock stars that weren't MVPs yet. We had Alexander, who was also very active in there. He got his award a few months ago. But we got Arpit, and we've got Oliver, who's with us today. Congratulations on your MVP award. So if you're not following these two folks, definitely strongly recommend that you follow them on Twitter and see all the great community content that they're producing. So congratulations to a couple new members of the MVP family that are very much focused on Power Apps portals. So they've been producing great content for years now, and it's great to see them get the recognition that they deserve. Next here, we've got the Power Apps CLI community tools. So we've got a couple tools from Arpit, and we've got a tool from Alexander, who I just mentioned also recently got his MVP award. So one of these is the Power Apps CLI. So this is the pack tool that if you've ever built like PCF controls, you may be familiar with it, where you do the pack and you push and you do your builds of the PCF controls. There are now commands within the pack, which we'll be getting into here in a little bit, that are portal specific. So the ability to list all the portals that you have, the ability to download and upload the content from a portal. So that's what these kind of tools are related to. So the first one that Arpit has given us is a tool, essentially an import-export for Azure DevOps. So he's built the Power Apps Portals build tools, which lets you have your steps within your Azure DevOps pipelines. So rather than having to write your own kind of PowerShell scripts that call the command line utilities, all that sort of stuff, you can just simply use those build tools to do your imports and exports if you're looking to use the pack download and pack portal download up and upload. So that's a great tool that was released. The pack portal tools were relatively hot off the press the last time we were joining here. So Arpit, I know, released those very, very quickly, so good on him. And then we've got another tool, because often there's an extension that Microsoft provides for VS Code, and that VS Code extension has some features like, and again, we'll show this here in a few minutes, but it has features like folder icons, and it also has some IntelliSense for Liquid and things like that. And so there are additional capabilities that Alexander has built. So an additional extension called the Power Apps Portal Helper VS Code extension that help you interact with that pack CLI tool. Basically just some shortcuts and that sort of thing, so that you can use those tools a little bit more efficiently rather than typing everything into PowerShell. So those were both recently released to the community. Take a look at those. If you're not sure what VS Code is, definitely take a look at that. It seems like if you're getting more into the kind of the more advanced customization of Power Apps portals, it does seem like VS Code is the way of the future. But certainly still lots of other options in the present. And that's what we're going to get into here next. So leading into this next section here, our topic for today is the many interfaces of Power Apps portals. So you can see here, I've kind of created a list of what I'm going to cover today. It's actually 2 pages long here. So just at a high level, again, when we're talking about the many interfaces of Power Apps portals, what we're talking about is the many interfaces for administering or creating or modifying your portals. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do, I think I did mention this earlier, there's a lot of ways that you can do things, many ways to do the same thing. And in some places it's easier than maybe in others. In other places, Microsoft has rewritten some of the functionality so that in different places. But I find that this, when someone just starts off in portals, it can be overwhelming, all the different places you can go and do these different things. So I thought we'd spend some time today just kind of giving a high level overview of the kind of the main interfaces that I'm using. I'm sure I'm probably missed some here, but I give a kind of a high level overview of, if you're building Power Apps portals, where are the different, interfaces that you're going to be using. So the first one on this list is make.powerapps.com. So this is kind of the main entry point. This is where you would be creating your portals. This is where you can access some of these other features. So make.powerapps.com is where you can access Portal Studio. This is where you can access the Portal Admin Center. This is where you can access the model-driven app. So it really is kind of if you think of it as kind of a hub, that it is the hub of Power Apps portals. It's kind of the entry point. You kind of go there first, and then you can get kind of access to all these other things. So we'll definitely be spending some time in make.powerapps.com, or maybe even if if you want to live on the wild side and you want to use the preview features, you'll use make.preview.powerapps.com. And I'm using that kind of more and more these days. Especially for some of the features regarding authentication, they were in preview. So I've seen very few times where make.preview.powerapps.com has actually not worked the way that I expect. So you get to see a lot of the kind of the cool new features there. We've also got the legacy front-side editing, which I'll talk about, and there's still some great use cases for using that. Sometimes for some quick and easy things, then you don't have to necessarily worry so much about caching. We've then got VS Code and the Power Apps CLI. We'll kind of cover those topics kind of together. And that's, like I mentioned, that's all very new in the last couple of months. The ability to use the Power Apps CLI and the VS Code extension, all that stuff. That's all very new. So exciting to see that coming out. And then we've also got these are all, if I go back to this list, these are all kind of official Microsoft offerings, and then we've got some tools in the XRM toolbox. Specifically, the one that I'm using quite a bit is the Portal Code Editor, and there are a bunch of other tools in there as well. So those are kind of the high-level topics that we're gonna cover today. So why don't we move out of PowerPoint slides and we'll move into the interfaces. So let me just move this over here. So as I mentioned, let's start with make.powerapps.com. make.preview.powerapps.com. So when you go to make.preview.powerapps.com, like I said, this is the kind of the main entry point. And if you're getting started on a portals project, this is where you're going to have to start, because this is where you create a portal. I'm assuming at this point that, you know, if you're kind of going through the scenario of creating a new portal, the first thing you have to do before you can create a portal is you have to create a Dataverse environment. So that would be done in the Power Platform Admin Center. So let's assume at this point that you've already created that Power Platform using the Power Platform Admin Center. Let's assume that you've created that environment. Once you've done that, then you can create the portal. So that's one of the main features here that we have in the make.powerapps.com. So I'm just in my environment here. This was the environment that I had used last month for the PCF control, so I'm just going to reuse that this month. And that is when you go into the apps, this is looking at all the different apps that you have in this particular environment, and you can see that I've got an app here that is my portal. I've also got a model-driven app that is the portal management app. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But this is kind of the one main area that you go to when you're managing your portals, is you're looking at your apps. And then when you look at your portal app specifically, if you go into the settings, there are a number of other options here. So one of these options is authentication settings. So this is one of the reasons that I'm using the make.preview.powerapps.com is just some of the configurability that you get if you want to configure Azure AD B2C. If I click on that and go to configure, you'll see that I get this nice kind of wizard style interface for setting up Power Apps portals, Azure AD B2C integration. But definitely managing the identity providers, whereas you can, if you want to still do it the old-fashioned manual way, you can do that via a bunch of site settings. So you can do it into the model-driven app, and we'll touch on the model-driven app in a second. But definitely in the make.powerapps.com, one of the things I'm doing here, one of the things I'm using it for quite a bit is for managing the authentication. It just, you know, there's a good chance at the end, if you follow the wizard, you're almost guaranteed to have something working. If you do site settings yourself manually, I can almost guarantee you the first try you'll get something wrong. There'll be something that got copied into the wrong place. So using the authentication management in make.powerapps.com, that to me is the way to go for identity and authentication management. As I mentioned, you go to this list. If you didn't have a portal yet already, this is where you create them from. So you go to the create button, you'll get your portal from blank. So this would be your starter portal. Now in this particular case, I don't have any of the Dynamics apps. So why don't I switch to an environment that does have Dynamics? Let me switch over to this one. So when I go to create my apps, I got my portal from blank still as well, but because this has the Dynamics installed in it, I also get these additional portals templates. So this is the interface you use, the make.powerapps.com, in order to create your portals. So in this one, I think I've already got a community portal, but for example, if I want to install partner portal, I could click here and go through this process of, oh, maybe I already have a partner in here. Tell me I already have a partner, let's say community. So this is the process I would go through to create another portal. Essentially fill in the name and the address, click create, wait anywhere from a couple minutes to, 15 minutes, half an hour, and it will create your portal. So that's the other thing that you get out of the make.powerappsportals.com or make.powerapps.com is the ability to create your portals, the ability to manage the authentication, and the access to these other interfaces. So why don't we look at that again? Let's look at some of these other interfaces that we can access through here. So the other interface, if we look at my portal, let me actually just switch back to my other environment here. Go into my apps. So within here, I've got a few buttons. The edit is going to take me to Portal Studio, which I'll touch in a second. But let's go to the settings again. We went to the authentication, and that kept us in kind of the make.powerapps.com. Let me go to the administration. So this is another thing. Now, you may be kind of asking yourself, like, why are there all these different screens? And really, it's just kind of for historical reasons. The very first administration area we had when Microsoft released Power Apps portals was this Power Apps Portal Admin Center. So you can kind of think of this as maybe the legacy admin experience. And there's still lots in here that this is the only place where you can do it. My guess long term is that maybe this might go away and maybe probably get moved into the make.powerapps.com. But essentially, this experience all existed long before make.powerapps came to be. So that's why we still got a lot of features that are in here. So you access it by make.powerapps.com, but there's a lot of things that you can do in this administration center. Some of the more common things are under the portal actions. You can restart your portal. So if you're ever in a case where, for whatever reason, you just want to kick your portal and tell it to restart, you can do that. Typically on most projects, at least once you're going to go in here and add a custom domain name, because more often than not, if you're releasing a portal for production, you're not going to use the .powerappsportals.com. So it's within this interface that you can customize the domain. You can change which Dynamics or a Dataverse environment it's in. You can manage the custom errors. So you can disable custom errors, you can enable logging, you can change the base URL of the portal. So if you pick something.powerappsportals.com and you don't like it anymore and you want to change it, you can do that here. You can enable maintenance mode. You can reset your portal. Now, reset and restart, two very different things. Restart just means reboot the portal. Reset means delete the portal, the Azure resources available with the portal. So very important to understand that reset the portal. There's really no button that you can click anywhere that will delete your portal data. Reset the portal deletes the Azure web app associated with your portal, but your solutions and all of your data still remain intact. So it's not quite as scary as it may sound. Whereas again, restart just simply takes that Azure web app and just restarts it, so it reboots it. But understanding the difference between restart and reset, very important. If you reset the portal, then you're deleting those Azure resources. We've got again, set up custom domains in SSL. This is kind of a wizard style interface for doing that. Managing your SSL certificates for your custom domain. The other place that you'll be in here, if you ever need to set up your SharePoint integration or your Power BI integrations, this is where you would do that. So usually it's kind of, you click the button, you give it, if you have the appropriate permissions, away you go. So that's pretty straightforward. But again, that's something that you're doing in here. Again, longer term, may some of these things start appearing in make.powerapps.com? Probably, hopefully. But I would say that, in the medium to short to medium term, this is where these features are going to continue to exist. We've got the run portal checker. So if you ever are having kind of issues with your portal and you're going to get in touch with support, I would suggest running the portal checker first, because that's one of the first things that the support's often going to ask you to do. So you can see here, I have anonymous access to entity forums and entity lists. I think that might have been on purpose, but maybe it wasn't. So maybe you have some that were not meant to be anonymous. So this kind of gives you warning. You can see everything else here is a pass, but it never hurts to run this portal checker on your portal instance, just to see if there are any specific recommendations for your portal. Basically, it's just a kind of a rule set of kind of common issues that Microsoft sees. So they're just kind of looking for specific scenarios, and they'll give you errors or kind of mitigation steps if they identify any issues. You can also manage your portal authentication key, which you can use for some of the for the authentication to Dataverse. And you can also set up IP address restrictions. So if you need a portal that should only be available to a specific, often it will be like an internal IP address, a corporate IP address, and you only want that to be available, whether that's for the production one or commonly on a dev site that only certain people should have access to. You can restrict IP access there as well. So lots available here in the portals admin center. Again, this is a different site. You can see the URL is very different than make.powerapps.com, but the way that you get to it is make.powerapps.com. So I'm going to leave this. I'm going to go back to here. So we've talked about the authentication, the administration. The site setting is just going to take us to the model-driven app, which we'll talk about in a second. But the next thing I want to talk about would be the Portal Studio. So if you are in your list of apps and you click the ellipse and you click edit, that's going to take you into what's called the Portal Studio. So the Portal Studio is the shortest description I give it is the citizen developer experience for building Power Apps portals. With this experience, you can create new pages, you can edit content, you can create basic, you can create kind of starter forms and lists. There's quite a few features that you can do in here, but it's not everything. It's kind of a subset of all the different features. You can also do theming. So I'll wait for this to load. I think my portal must have went to sleep, but while that's happening, you can use the portals. There are some features that are exclusive to the Portal Studio. So let's take a quick look at those. So the theming, Microsoft, I don't know, in the last year or two, introduced this ability to kind of do these basic themes. So they've included a few out of the box here: dark yellow, dark blue. You see, we've got about 8 different themes here. These presets. This is something that you can really only do via the Portal Studio. You can also create your own custom theme. So if I say, hey, I want a new theme, and that will allow you to pick some of the colors. Just wait for this thing to wake up over here. Maybe I'll refresh just to give everything a chance to wake up. Go into themes. See, it created my new theme here. So within my new theme, I have the ability to select these different colors, and that will affect the look and feel of my portal. So let's just say I want my primary header menu color to be something different. I can click on that. I can pick a different color. Let's just say I want to be a little bit more purple. So I do that, and that's on the header menu hover. We've got that. I'm going to save that. I'm going to browse to the portal. And I should get, see how these are blue? I should get where those turn to purple because I've edited my basic theme. While that's loading, so you can see now the hover of that goes to purple. The other thing that they've introduced here is a table permissions editor. Now, this is something that can still be done if you want to in the model-driven app. However, this is one thing that I'm seeing myself go more into the Portal Studio to do. Microsoft has done a really great job building out this new interface for managing your table permissions. It allows you to create new ones. It allows you to easily create child permissions. And when you do that, you get a nice hierarchical view of the permissions. What I'm going to do is maybe I'll flip over to an environment that has more permissions because that will be a better example of that. I'm going to go to here. I'm going to go into my portal. I'm going to click edit on this. You can see I'm in the permissions here. So go to there, go to my table permissions. And there'll be a bunch of entity permissions here, or table permissions, and you can see now they're organized in a hierarchical way. So you can see, oh, this one's actually a child of this one. You can see directly which permissions, or sorry, which web roles are associated with them, what the permissions are, all that sort of stuff. So this is really quite a nice view of your entity permissions and a great way to kind of edit them and manage them. So kudos to Microsoft. We can also kind of group by role here. Bunch of different features that we've got in here. So I really like the way that Microsoft has built out this this table permissions thing. So I personally don't often go into and start editing pages using the Portal Studio. I am typically, if I'm writing out a bunch of kind of custom HTML and that sort of thing, my go-to right now is the XRM toolbox, which we'll get to in a minute. But that being said, within the Portal Studio, I really do like the table permissions thing. I do like the Power BI. So if you do have Power BI enabled and you're on a page, you can start adding components, and it will handle kind of generating the liquid markup required for Power BI. So I really do quite like that. I'm going to just try going to make.powerapps.com because I'm wondering if the editors doesn't seem to be loading in the preview. Wonder if it's my portal instance or whether it's just a preview issue. But within the components here, we've got Power BI. The virtual agent would have, the chatbot would have been in the preview one. Why don't I just jump back to that for a second? Oh, that's because I don't have it enabled. But yes, oh yeah, there it is, right there, chatbot. So some of these components, especially for adding Power BI and chatbot, can be quite a bit easier in this experience because what these are essentially doing is generating code, whether it's Liquid or JavaScript. And so not that you can't craft it yourself, but I just find it quite a bit easier to let them. Microsoft's already done the hard work to build the UI to add the Power BI. I like to use that for those types of things as well. And the other big one would be this browse website button. There's a reason that we named, or not we, I guess Colin and Nick Dolman named the podcast Refresh the Cache, because refreshing the cache is something that people definitely need to be aware of and understand how that all works. If you don't know this already, when you click the browse website button, it will clear the cache of the portal. So that's an important thing. If you're making changes to your portal in the model-driven app or through the API and you're not seeing them on your portal, the first thing you want to do is refresh the cache. There's a couple different ways of doing it, but like I said, I find maybe the easiest one these days is just to click that browse website button and it takes care of killing the cache for you. I was not paying attention to questions, but I am now. Are you able to edit the Dynamics Marketing Event Portal in the Portal Studio? How do I say this nicely? As far as I'm concerned, there is no such thing as the Dynamics Marketing Event Portal, and I'd like to keep it that way. What I'm really trying to say is I've never actually used the Marketing Event Portal. It's such a different beast. It's technically a portal, but there's a whole bunch of stuff built in there using Angular. So the short answer is I have no idea. My guess is probably not because it's all built in Angular. But I'm happy to say I don't really know the answer to that question because it does that thing just scares me, and I hope to avoid it until Microsoft does something else with that portal. That portal was not built by the actual portals team. It was kind of built by a different team. And so it is so different than anything else. It's something I just haven't had a chance to work with. All right, so in terms of Portal Studio, I don't know why the editor's not working, but there's kind of a drag and drop interface in here for editing content. So some people like doing that. I'm still much more of I like to do the HTML myself, so I'm not using it a whole lot, but if you're not as comfortable with HTML, it can be a great experience for you. All right, so let's get back out of the Portal Studio, and now we're going to jump into the model-driven app. All right, let's do this the hard way. Go to make.powerapps.com. Turn off my cell phone. Oh, we've got a follow-up. It was a loaded question. You can edit custom pages, but not the out of the out of the box stuff. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me that you can't edit any of that out of the box stuff. Anyway, so back to this. So back into my environment here, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the model-driven app. So once you install your portal, when you install a portal, you actually get two apps. You get the portal and you get the model-driven app. The model-driven app is probably called Portal Management. Back in the day, I think it was called Dynamics 365 Portals. But if I open it up, what it is a model-driven Power App that contains all of the, or most of the entities or tables related to portal management. So this is kind of the, this is kind of the lowest level in terms of, most of the things that you want to be able to do on a portal, you can do in here. You've got all your entity permissions, your forms, your lists, all those things can be managed in here. a lot of the stuff is just kind of using the out-of-the-box capabilities that come with building a model-driven app. So that's where, for example, if we look at our table permissions, if we look at our full list of table permissions, now this one's, of course, that other environment, but the interface here is not quite as slick and sophisticated as it would be in the Portal Studio. So you can certainly do what you need to do in this interface. It just takes a little bit more getting used to. You know, you can manage web templates, you can manage your web pages. So if you want to create new web pages, you can certainly do that in here as well. But so there's lots that you can do in here. For me personally, what I'm more like, what I typically use the management app is when I'm building out my lists and my basic forms, because this is the experience. There's some very basic things you can do in Portal Studio, but for the most part, when you're doing anything with entity metadata or you're creating anything other than a very, very simple form or list, you're going to end up going in here. So there's really no other interface that gives you the capabilities that you might be looking for in terms of customizing your lists and your forms. So that's really what I'm primarily using the portal management app is for, when I'm creating my entity lists or my lists and my forms. There's just all of these different options that you see in all these different tabs. You know, there's probably 100 options, and in the Portal Studio, you might get 5 options. So there's just so much more capabilities that you have access to here. And this is really the only interface from Microsoft to be able to do all these things in terms of the action button configurations, and metadata, success settings, and all these just various form options. So again, when I'm working on a project, I'll have one tab with my portal management app open, and I'm using it to edit my basic forms, my lists, and my advanced forms. If we kind of look at this list, I can probably point to most of these things and just say, you know, if I'm editing my website record, which isn't very often, just kind of when we're setting up to begin with, I'm doing that in here. My web pages, if I'm creating web pages, sometimes I'll use the legacy front-side editor, sometimes I'm using Portal Studio. Web templates, I'm typically using the XRM toolbox. Web link sets, I'm using the front-side editor. So a lot of these things I'm typically doing elsewhere, but in terms of the model-driven app, it's really about the basic forms, the list, and the advanced forms. There's really probably no better option than doing it in here. So you'll see that a lot in here. As well as we were talking about the site settings earlier. So for the most part, this is where you're going to be editing your site settings, but there are a few other experiences specifically around authentication where those authentication wizards are really just wizards that set these site settings. So site settings are something that I typically am using the portal management app for, unless Microsoft has built an experience like the authentication to make that a little bit easier for me. What do we've got next here? So that kind of covers the portal management model-driven app. The other interface I want to show you is what we call the legacy front-side editor. So we call this a legacy front-side editor. It existed when Microsoft acquired the ADX Studio product. So this has been in the product since day one. It's probably been in there. I remember seeing the demos of this internally when I worked at ADX Studio, when the product team kind of presented, hey, you're gonna be able to go into the portal, you're gonna be able to log in, and you'll be able to click these edit buttons that are gonna light up everywhere, and you're gonna be able to do that. So I'm gonna do that here. I'm gonna sign into this portal. I'm gonna sign in with an account that does have those administrative rights. And then once I do that, we're going to see the edit buttons pop up everywhere. And that's what we mean by front side experience. It's literally right on the portal itself. So it's the front side experience. And the reason we call it legacy is that, it hasn't seen any investment really from Microsoft other than changing some names to be consistent. But it's not the future, but it's certainly the present. So now that I've logged in here, it'll take a second for it to recognize that I'm an admin, but it should do that. And now I've got this thing. So if you see this little menu popping up, this is the front side editing. Now, as I mentioned, I still like this, to use this legacy front side edit experience quite a bit. I find it's often the easiest way to just create pages. I find it the easiest way to manage my web link sets. So if I'm in here and I want to manage this web link set, I want to kind of drag and drop and create new things. I still think that the legacy front side editor is great for doing that. So creating pages, editing content, and being able to kind of see it right in line. So if you're editing content, one of the nice things that you can do here is you can change your content when you click save. You don't have to worry about, so I have the word edit in here. I think that was from last time. So if I click save here, the great thing is since I'm doing it directly on the portal, I don't have to worry about caching. You're doing the updates directly in the portal, so it's the cache is applied, or it's updated via the cache, so we don't have to worry about clearing the cache when you do that. The other thing that I will use the legacy frontside editor for if I'm logged in as admin is for clearing the cache. So if you go to /_services/about, open this up. If I'm an administrator, I will get this button to clear my cache, rebuild my searched index, or clear the config. So often I'll be logged in as an admin and using these tools on there as well. Okay, now let's get into some of the last kind of official from Microsoft experience, and that is the new capabilities that have been recently released for the Power Apps CLI and VS Code. So I'm going to bring my VS Code thing up here. So I've got VS Code open. Now I've installed a few things into VS Code. So if I look at my extensions, go view extensions, what I've got installed is the Power Platform VS Code extension. And I've also got the Power Apps Portal Helper, and that's the Alexander's utility. Once I install that, I do get access to the pack tools. So the pack PA portal is are the new capabilities that have just been added to the Power Apps command line utility. So when you see pack, that's the Power Apps command line or the Power Apps CLI utility. So if I just look at what capabilities are available for a Power Apps portal, you can see that we've got list, we've got download, and we've got upload. So list will just tell me, if I do this, list will just tell me which, how many portals or what portals I have in the environment that I'm currently connected to. So within the Power Apps command line, we've got auth, which will tell us, let me do that, auth list. That will tell me all the different environments that I'm connected to. And then what I'm going to do to here next is, so I'm selected my NHPCF one, and then if I do Power Portal List, it will bring up that I've got just my starter portal in that particular environment. So again, Power PA Portal, that's really all the list does. Now for download and upload, so what download will do is you'll see I've used the download command, and it will pull down YAML files for all the different components for my particular portal. So it is before I ran this folder was empty. So what I can do is I can go PA, not in there. I can go pack PA portal download, and it's what's going to ask for is the path where I want to do it, the URL, or sorry, the ID of the portal. So let me just go into my history here, right there. So I'm just going to download it to the current directory. So it's going to put it into portal. So let me just change my directory to cd portal, and then let me go back to my command here. So you can see I'm doing a download. I'm telling the path to be my current directory, and I'm giving it the ID of my website. Hit enter. What's doing is it's downloading there. So basically cleared that all out. It's downloaded all that. Oh, it already existed. So why don't I just do a demo here? Let me just delete that. Yes. Probably won't let me do that because, Oh, it will. Okay, if I do this, it's going to tell me I'm there. Dir. CD. Let me create that again. Make dir portal. All right, and then CD portal, and then let me run that command again here. So now it's downloading that, and you can see in this particular directory, it's downloading all these YAML files. And then within these directories, there are YAML files for all the different pages. So for example, if I look at the home page, here's the YAML that kind of describes the home page, and then within the actual content, I got it for the different languages. So if you remember, I added edits to the ones here. So let me just do demo change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. So I've just saved this HTML file in here. Just wait for this thing to finish downloading all the different files here. Update manifest. So what we can do is that if you want to edit your portal in VS Code versus just editing it in the model-driven app or editing it in Portal Studio, you can do that in VS Code now. What you do is you download all the contents, you make your changes. So I'm going to say demo change. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to do the upload. Do that. So now it's connecting back to, so it's taking my thing and it's connecting back to my instance, and it says the upload path provided does not contain a portal data. So I got to change into this directory. See if this will do it. So I just made this change called demo change locally here. If I go back to my portal and I go to the nhpcf.powerappsportals.com, and nothing changed here because we always have to remember to clear the cache, because we just made a change that the portal itself, the portal web app didn't really know about. So let's just try clearing the cache on the portal. And once I do that, and then I go back to the home page. No, I guess not. Let me just double check to see if oh, now the thing just succeeded here. Let me try that again. I guess that's not going to work. Never works when you're doing a demo. Hey, welcome to Power Apps Portals. Is that the? Let me just see here if I. Oh, deleted. Let me just try this one more time. Web pages, home page, content. Oh, right, because I changed the directory structure. So we got the copy. That one is there. Demo change 2. We'll just give that one more try. The idea is that then I run the PA portal upload. Now you can do this to update your content in a single environment, or you can also use it to move your content between environments. So if you have it on one, in your dev environment, you can use this same thing to move it to the other environment. So not only is this a tool for editing your thing, but you can also use this tool for your ALM process. We'll just take a quick peek to see if it worked this time. If not, we'll move on. But that's kind of the idea, is that you can download your content and then you can upload your content. There we go. Demo change 3. I think I must have been changing the wrong file. So, and that's really kind of what the Power Apps portal admin, or the Power Apps CLI, gives you right now. You can list the portals, you can download the stuff, and you can upload the stuff. And anything kind of that's in here, if you want to change them, it will kind of respect those changes. In terms of what Alexander's extension does, There's also things where, or sorry, that the Microsoft tool also has additional things that can be added in the context of, there's certain, let me see if I can find an example here. When I'm on a page, content page, is it, there's some right click menus that if I do, they don't seem to be lighting up at the moment. Trying to remember. Portal code. The other thing was control here. So this would be Alexander's kind of extension. So the portal helper. So if I type in portal helper, we've got a bunch of different shortcuts that you can use. So rather than having to remember exactly what these things are, you can say, oh, I just want to do that and I want to list portals. And it will run that in your terminal for you automatically. So rather than having to remember that, you can just go into the commands here. You can type in portal helper and you can see all the different, you can download latest portal, download latest, all these different commands that just help you do that a lot quicker than typing it out can be yourself. Oh, do you know what it was? I think it was on a basic, no, it wasn't a basic form. It should be a web page. There's supposed to be, when you right click on these things, there should be a context menu that lets you, oh, there it is. If you right click on the web page YAML, if you want to create custom CSS and JavaScript. So this page right now doesn't have any custom CSS, but if I were to do that, I could say create custom CSS. And what that does is it creates this custom CSS file and basically with the right syntax for you. So there's a few kind of right click on the thing in the context menu that it gives you. So yeah, so this VS Code thing here, it's pretty new to me. I've been using it the last few weeks just to kind of give it a try, see if there's any kinks in there. But I think longer term, this might be the way that we do that. The main alternative to that I am typically using is the XRM toolbox. And I know we're kind of running out of time here, but let me just connect to my environment here in HPCF. And the tool that I really like to use is the portal. Oh, guess I have to sign in here. Is the portal code editor. We'll wait for this to connect. And what I really love about the portal code editor is the ability to edit the web templates and the custom JavaScript and CSS that exists on my portals. Very similar to what you can do in VS Code now with this other tool. Basically, you can go into the portal code editor, open this up, and then you can see your web template. So if I just wanted to edit a web template, or if I want to edit my page, I could look at, say, my home page, go into here, I can look at the content. I've changed demo 3, so let's just change that to demo 4. I save and upload this content. I go back to my portal. I got to clear my cache like I have to do with any of these things. Go back over here, refresh the page, and I should see demo 4. So when I'm writing JavaScript, when I'm writing CSS, when I'm writing HTML for my portals, it's more often than not in this portal code editor. And I've got access to content snippets, the entity forms, the entity lists. So this would be the JavaScript associated with those things, and then the web templates. So I'm doing a ton of stuff directly in this tool. That's kind of my go-to. You can't create new things in here, but you can edit them. All right. And just so that you are aware, there are other tools in the XRM toolbox for the portal. If I go into the tool library and I just search by portal, wait for this to load. So if I just search by portal, you'll see that there's a number of things. There's a site setting manager, entity permissions manager, configuration compare. So there are a number of tools in here that usually just make your life a little bit easier to manage things as opposed to using the model-driven app. All right. Quickly just back to the presentation here. So the next call we've got scheduled, it's a little bit earlier in the month, July 15th, 3 p.m. same time as always. Open to suggestions. If anyone I have not picked a topic yet for next month, so if anyone has any suggestions, certainly open to that. If there's anyone who's eager to present their own experiences with portals, I'd be happy to have a guest presenter as well. So please reach out to me if you're interested in that. Again, I just want to thank Jason and the team at MS Dynamics World, and I'll just leave it at if there's any questions, whether it's about any of the stuff we covered today or just portals in general. We've got a few minutes here at the end.
Thanks so much, Nick. And yeah, we'll leave the session open here and see if any questions come in. I will stop the recording here though.